Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. Now, what we're going to be talking about today are some frequently asked questions asked to me as a business coach. Now, the reason that this is such a crucial webinar is because these are questions that are being asked by small businesses right now. These are questions that are important to the small business owner. There are so many small businesses in the country, so of course I couldn't choose all of them, but I have chosen specifically the ones that are asked to me and the ones that I can see the most value in giving back to you in. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today, FAQs of a small business. All right, so I'm just going to give it another minute or two, wait for everybody to join us on today's presentation. Now, if this is one of your first iOB business webinars, first of all, a very warm welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. The way that these usually work is we do a brief introduction with myself. My name is Ben, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Now, after we've done this, we dive into a presentation. We're going to be doing that for around about 15 to 20 minutes or so this afternoon. And then after that, we're going to dive into a little Q&A session at the end. So it's important that I tell you now, if you do have any questions throughout today's presentation, you are more than welcome to ask them. So please do ask away. These questions can relate to business, to digital marketing, to the webinar itself. So the Q&A box should be at the bottom of your screen in a little gray box, and I'll get that question and we'll ask them at the end, or sorry, we'll answer them at the end of the session. Now, after each topic, I'm going to give you a very brief pause just to go ahead and ask any questions and collect your thoughts, write down any notes or anything that you need. So don't worry, we're not going to fly through at max speed. You will have time to write down your notes. So without further ado, hello, hi, welcome to everybody joining us just now. I'm going to go ahead and get the presentation set up on screen. Okay, so if I can just do a quick mic check, can everybody hear me okay? And equally as importantly, can everybody see this screen okay? All right, fantastic. Perfect. Okay, mic is good. Visual is good. Excellent. So let me go ahead and switch off my camera. So you shouldn't be able to see me anymore, but you should still be able to see the presentation that we have up on screen here. Okay, so you should see a title that says FAQs of a digital agency startup answered by a business coach. All right, so specifically what we're going to be talking about today, for those of you that are just joining us, I, as a business coach, I'm going to be answering questions that I get most commonly from digital agency startups. Okay, so if you're here, you're on this webinar, there's a very good chance that you're looking to become a digital agency owner. It's a pleasure to have you here. We also have some existing digital agency owners, novices, intermediates, and the veterans of the industry. Okay, so this webinar is going to be useful to everyone, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been in the industry for years. Okay, so introduce myself once again to those of you that haven't seen me yet. My name is Ben, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Okay, so my job is to work with small businesses and help them achieve stability and growth. This is something that I love and something that I have the pleasure of practicing every single day. Okay, so I am here to present this webinar to you, to deliver this content, to share some really useful insights with you. Okay, now, what are we going to be talking about today specifically? Okay, these are the questions that I'm going to answer for you today. Number one, how do I package my skills into an offer? Okay, the offer is something that we talk about so often as digital agencies and as small businesses. Okay, it's something that we wonder about constantly and something that I'm going to deliver some absolute clarity on today. Second, where do I find the people that will actually hire my digital agency? Now, you've probably asked this yourself if you haven't heard somebody else ask it before. Okay, where do I find customers? Where do I find clients? Okay, well, I'm going to answer this for you as well. All right, so I'm holding nothing back here. Everything that I know as a business coach around these questions, you are going to get in full today. Okay, and finally, number three, there is a lot to manage. Should I hire someone? Okay. Now, I'm going to answer this question in the third and final topic because I believe that it's something that we can spend a little bit of time on, okay? But as a brand new business, I know that you have a lot on your plate, okay? There's so much to do, there's so much to take care of, and you are all of the departments when you first start out, okay? So we're going to talk about what that means in just a moment, but for now, let's kick off with topic number one. How do I package my skills into an offer, okay? So your skill set is your most valuable trait when you come into business. All right, and I want to show you how to utilize it and make sure that you're making the most of it. All right, so before you do absolutely anything else, including that, before you make any major business decisions, before you actually get going, you need to figure out what your skill set is. Now, if you're established, you'll already know what your skill sets are. You'll already know what skill sets you can sell to individuals, customers, clientele, okay? There's a good chance that you have already worked out this theory. For those of you that are just starting out or looking to get started, you need to begin with assessing your own skill set, okay? Now, I can't tell you specifically what your skill set is, but I need you to look in yourself and figure out what you are great at, because everybody is great at something, okay? This entrepreneurial trait that we all have on this presentation today, we're business owners, we're budding business owners, we're prospective business owners, okay? Everybody has a value in a certain skill, and you need to figure out what that skill is, okay? Now, there is a common belief, what often happens when people come to start a digital agency, they'll tell themselves, oh, well, I haven't really got any valuable skills. I haven't got any marketing skills. I haven't got any digital skills. I don't really know what to call myself. I don't know how to describe what I can do, okay? You are not alone with this question. Let me share that message with you now. There are many, many people that I've spoken to specifically that have this exact same concern. And what I can tell you is that you do absolutely have a skill set. You just need to understand what that skill set is, okay? So I had a wonderful client recently that I was speaking with, and they are a new-ish digital agency owner, and they had some fantastic success already. And we were going over the offer and we were establishing what it was, okay? And this person almost incorrectly believed that what they had to offer wasn't valuable, okay? So we ran through this excellent session, and we actually discovered that some really, really strong internal skills were there from previous corporate work, okay? Skills specifically in business, skills specifically in analytics, okay? Now, analytics are a huge part of marketing. They're a very, very, very big cog in a big machine, okay? But nonetheless, they are absolutely invaluable when it comes to applying it to the right area, okay? Now, one may question, how would auditing and analytics fit into marketing, okay? Now, if this is the case, then you need to do some more education. You need to believe yourself. You need to trust yourself that you can apply these in a profitable manner, okay? Because this brings me nicely onto my next point. Consider how these skills can be applied to bring results for clients, okay? So let's just say that you are an expert analyst, that you spent 20 years in analytics for a large corporate company or even a smaller company, okay? And you've been doing this background work, you've been doing studies, you've been doing research, you've been discovering what this business needs and doesn't need, okay? If this is something that you have, okay, and this is just one example of many, many, many different skills, this can be applied in countless different ways. Analytics are invaluable because it's real-time data that can be used to predict the health and current health of the business, okay? Somebody else's business, even as a client, okay? You can look at analytics, how they come into paid advertising and understanding the results and how much you should spend and how much money you're getting back, the percentages of ROI, and all these different wonderful things that you can pull out with that analytics skill set, okay? Maybe you have a separate skill set to analytics. Maybe you're a wonderful people person. Maybe you can talk the socks off of anyone, okay? You might be an incredible salesperson and you can help people with your marketing skills because you can help them in sales conversion. You can help them in creating wonderful, compelling marketing copy that would allow them to sell to more of their customers, okay? So always believe that you have a valuable skill set. Now, this skill set can usually come from a job that you've had in the past, something that you're naturally good at, something that you have a natural talent in, something that you've been doing for a little while. Maybe you've worked hard to become great at it. Now, most of our skill set, we're not naturally born with. All of us have our natural traits. Some of us are extroverts, some of us are introverts. Some of us find it easier to pick up maths. Some of us find it easier to pick up English, okay? But there's many different ways in which you can apply your skill set, but you have to look deep within and figure out exactly what your skill set is so that you can then become to utilize it in a business sense. Okay, so moving on to our next point. Consider how much you need to earn on a monthly basis and work backwards. Okay, so our offer, just to re-go over this, okay, our offer is essentially what we can do as a business and how we can sell that to a client. Okay, the offer is essentially the package that we fit all this wonderful stuff in, and then we say to the client, there you go, I would like this much money in exchange for this service, please. Okay, so if you're at this stage, the next thing that you're going to need to know is how much money you need, okay? Because another super common question is, where do I begin with pricing? I know what I can do, but how on earth do I know how much it's worth, okay? So number one, you know how good you are at what it is you're proposing to do, okay? So once you've had a chance to analyze your skill set, Second thing you come back down to look at is how your skills can be applied to bring results for these clients. So like I said, if you're incredible at analytics, you can look at paid advertising campaigns and you can bring them better results. Okay, that is worth money. Okay, now how much money is up to the skill that you have. Okay, if you're just starting out, obviously you're going to be on the lower end of the spectrum. And if you've been a veteran of the industry and you're an incredible analyst, then you could look at maybe going to 80–90% of that expert scale. Okay, but the first pricing tip I'm going to share with you today is consider how much you need to earn on a monthly basis and work backwards. Okay, so let's just take the example that you are a startup digital marketing agency, because this is who I get this question from most commonly. All right, so most of you will be either leaving a job or looking to go part-time in a job. Okay, so if this is the case, you need to consider how much money your business, and including you, need to earn on a monthly basis. Okay, so this could be 1,000, it could be 2,000, it could be 3,000. Okay, it depends how much money you need, depends what your setup is, it depends what personal finances are like for you, lots and lots of different factors. But you will essentially know how much money you need to take home personally. Now you can use the comparison of your current salary. If that supports you healthily enough, fantastic. If it's a higher number, if it's a lower number, great. Okay, you work with that number. Now, what you need to do once you've established this number is work backwards. Okay, now I'm going to cover what working backwards means in just a second as we continue to go through this. Okay, but the reason I ask you to work backwards is because we need to get to the result first. We establish, I'm just going to use an example of £1,000 here. Okay, so when we're set up to do £1,000, we need to understand what this means in terms of how much we can sell. Okay, so let's say that our absolute earning necessity is £1,000 per calendar month. Okay, this is what we need to earn. Okay, there is no question about this. Now, in reverse engineering mode, what we can then do is establish how many client packages we need to sell. Okay, now we're going to cover more of what this means in just a second. Okay, but let's just go by the example that you've established your skill set, you figured out how it's going to bring results for clients, you've decided that it's going to be worth around about £200 a month. Okay, now with this basic logic, let's say that we need to earn £1,000 a month. That means that we must have at any one time at least 5 clients at £200 a month. 5 times 200 equals 1,000 equals your monthly fees. Okay, so this is what you need to do. And I know that sounds pretty straightforward, okay, because the maths around it is. Now, the reason that complication gets brought into these kinds of things is because people are coming in with varying quotes. They come in at different customized tailors, you know, whatever. Okay, they'll put lots of random figures into a proposal, and this one will be way up there and the next one will be way down low, and then they realize that they're working for too much money, they're not working for enough money, and then the problems begin to arise because you haven't got any consistency. Okay, like I said, I'm not holding back here. I'm giving you as much value as I possibly can and sharing with you everything I know when it comes to crafting an offer for a digital marketing agency. The first thing you need to establish when you're putting forward offers to clients is consistency, both for you and for your client. You need absolute clarity on what you sell, why you sell it, and how much you sell it for. Then trust me in the fact that your sales conversion is going to see a benefit from that. Okay, so the next thing I need you to do is consider how much time you have to give on a weekly or monthly basis. All right, so what this essentially means is if you're still working part-time, then you want to work a 40-hour week, but you're working at your other company for 20 hours. Okay, this means that you'll probably have within reason about 20 hours or so per week spare that you can come and work on the business. Okay, now you can times this by 4 to get the monthly number, which would be at 80. Now, the reason that this is important is because you need to understand the time commitment from your clients. Okay, you need to understand how much time you will be able to give your clients and if the fee is going to be a reasonable fit. All right, so here we have a simple equation: calculate time versus income required to price your offer. Okay, so let's just say that you committed to taking on 5 clients, £200 a month, equaling £1,000 a month total. Okay, now if you have 20 hours spare per week, 20 divided by 5 is 4. Okay, so you must have at least a spare 4 hours per week to work on each client. Okay, and this is how you ultimately come to pricing your offer. Okay, now that number might go higher, it might go lower. You might be at £500 a month, and if that's the case and you're working at 4 hours per week, then you're averaging, let's just say, around about 16 hours a month. Okay, now is £500 a reasonable fee for this? Because then you can work out what your hourly rate would be. Okay, so your hourly rate there, forgive me on the maths, is maybe about 30 to 35 pounds an hour, give or take. That could be wrong, but just bear with me on the logic. Okay, but the reason you need to calculate time versus income required is because you must be able to price your offer realistically, okay? Because if you're going in at £1,000 a month offer and you can only spend an hour per week on that client, you're going to bring yourself a problem, okay? Because you're not working enough time for those fees. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a very firm believer in value over time, okay? If you can deliver £1,000 worth of value in 1 hour, it's good for you. But we're looking at people who are just starting out, okay? If you are unable to deliver value without committing considerable time, which is 9 times out of 10, that's the case, then I want you to use this as your calculation, okay? So if you've got 20 hours a week spare and you need £1,000 a month, the absolute minimum you need to be charging over 5 clients is £200 a month each, okay? It's a very, very simple calculation. How much time do you have and how much money do you need? Therefore, how much money do you need to charge to meet your overall monthly amount? And that's your equation, okay? And a final point, assess your ideal client for your skill set and your price range, okay? This is the final part of the offer. And this is something that we're going to talk about in depth over on the next slide, okay? But your ideal client is somebody who's going to be able to buy the offer that you're selling, okay? So when we're looking at this ideal client, they need to be able to afford our offer, first and foremost, okay? And secondarily, they need to feel value in the skill set that we can deliver. All right, so I'm not going to touch too much on that right now because we're going to continue to talk about that in depth in chapter 2 or topic number 2 even. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a moment. Go ahead, ask any questions, any notes you want to take. I'm going to give you just a very brief moment to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back with you. All right, fantastic. So hopefully now you've had a good moment to go ahead and ask any questions that you have and anything that you need answered, and it will be my pleasure to get to them at the end of today's webinar for you. Okay, so moving on to topic number 2 now. Where do I find the people that will actually hire my digital agency? Okay, now this is a question that I get so often because it's something that's so important. Without clients, we don't have a business, okay? Especially in the service industry, clients are who we rely on, all right? So beginning with, where do I find people that will actually hire my digital agency? Ask yourself these questions, okay? So get your notepad out, ask yourself these questions, write down your answers, okay? Because I'm going to explain with you as we go along through this session. Number 1, who can afford my service, okay? Now, from session number 1 or topic number 1 today, we have figured out how much we need to charge with our very, very simple calculation of time versus income required. Okay, so you should already have a good idea. Now, if you can't answer these questions right now, that's fine. It's totally understandable. You've only been on this for about 20, 25 minutes, okay? So write down these questions and consider them further, okay? Continually think about this because who can afford my service is really going to be one of the biggest things, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because you try and sell your service to somebody that can't afford it, you're going to spend a lot of time and have an awfully limited amount of success, if any at all, okay? The second reason I ask you is because if you go and look for the big fish, when you're not really offering that kind of level of service, they might have a lot more money to spend, but they're not really going to consider your lower price point because some people, in a consumer psychology sense, will see higher value and higher fees, okay? Even if that isn't necessarily the logic, that is just the way it can be perceived, all right? So first consideration, first question, who can afford my service? Second, is there a particular niche that would benefit most, okay? So when we're looking at something like paid advertising, okay? So let's just say that this is your service. You work with paid advertising on the major companies, major platforms, okay? Now, if this is something that you do, you can consider if there's any niches that would benefit most from your service, okay? So a niche in this sense could be a service-based business. It could be a product-based business. Now, the two are slightly different. Let's just say that Amazon is a product-based business and your digital agency is a service-based business, okay? Service-based is generally where somebody will deliver the service using their time, and in exchange, they will ask for a fee. Product-based business is I will sell you this bottle of water and I will ask for a fee, and that is our business over. Okay, so if there was a particular niche that would benefit most, okay, now really what this comes down to is your skill set and your particular offer. Okay, so let's just say that you're doing paid advertising for service-based businesses and you've got some experience in the health and fitness industry, okay? And that's where you feel like most of your benefit and value will come from, okay? Maybe you've been a gym instructor in the past, maybe you're a personal trainer, maybe you're just a health and fitness wizard and you know everything there is to know, Okay, so if there is a particular niche that would benefit most, consider this, okay? Because if you're amazing at paid advertising and you know tons about the health and fitness industry, then potentially working with personal trainers, gym instructors, gyms, fitness platforms, online fitness platforms, all service-based businesses that could massively benefit from your offer and your service. If this is the skill set that you have, utilize it, okay? Now, we look back to topic number 1 today when I was asking you to think about your skill set and what could be more valuable. I said to you that previous skill set and experience can be valuable in any which way. Okay, now, let's just say that you're a personal trainer in a past life. Okay, and you're wondering how on earth this could be relevant to paid advertising and marketing. Well, of course it will be. Because if you can pick up the skill set of paid advertising, you can now combine your health and fitness experience and everything you know from working in a gym for 10 years. You can combine that with your paid advertising and marketing experience gained now. You have an offer. Okay, so consider if there's a particular niche that would benefit most. Secondarily, which demographics fit my ideal client? Okay, so the demographic can mean anything from gender. Okay, we can also look at geographical demographics. We can look at the size of the business. We can look at any other important factors that we need. Okay, so is location important? Is the gender important? Is the age important? Okay, now maybe you're looking at health and fitness spas, or maybe you're looking at beauty salons. Maybe you're looking at hairdressing. Okay, of course, in these particular roles, these various things are going to be important. Okay, now it depends on the size of the business that you're looking at. Is age important with your client? Okay, you can ask so many questions, but just start off with the basics. Okay, is gender important? Is age important? Is the type of business important? Is the geographical location important? Who do I need to sell to? Okay, who is going to be my ideal customer? Is my ideal customer going to be men and women over the age of 50? Because these are generally the people that have these types of businesses. Okay, or is it a substantial size business? Does the business need to be doing over £500,000 a year in turnover? Or would that be too big a business? Do we need to go lower? Okay, so consider which demographics fit your ideal client. Okay, if you're based in London, maybe you want to work with local businesses to begin with, or maybe you have an online offering and you want to go nationwide. Okay, it's totally up to you. Now, do remember that the more specific you get, often the more complex it will be to sell, only because you are selling to a smaller audience. Okay, so let's just say that your audience of men over 50 is 1 million, purely for example's sake. I don't know if that's true or not, but purely for an example's sake. Okay, now let's say that men at the similar equivalent, but men under the age of 25, okay, you might be narrowing down your audience to say 500,000, okay, instead of 1 million. Now, essentially what this means is your audience is just half. Therefore, when you're selling to less people, naturally it's going to be more difficult to get these sales because you're speaking to a smaller crowd. Okay, so just consider this when you're thinking about the niche that would benefit and the demographics that you would utilize. Okay, next up, where do they spend most of their time online? Okay, now this is important because if you're looking for somebody, you must consider your advertising methods. Now, generally, as a digital marketing agency, you want to show off your skill set. Okay, if you're a digital marketing agency, it's pretty much expected that you're going to be good at doing stuff online, especially in the digital space. Okay, which is completely understandable. So if you're looking to utilize online marketing in varying forms, okay, you need to first consider where your clientele or your prospective clientele would spend most of their time. Are they big users of social media? Would they try and find you on Google? Would they find you on a YouTube advert, for example? Okay, you need to figure out where your demographic spends a lot of time. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on the more business side of social media? Okay, because if you're looking for very serious business owners, then there's a very good chance that they are going to exist on LinkedIn. Okay, now, in addition to where they spend most of their time online, okay, so let's just say that they are prolific social media users, okay, and because this is your specific age range and type of business, okay, so let's just say that your ideal customer is beauty salons and they're aged between 25 and 50. Okay, now you could do a little bit of your own research on this, but there's a very, very strong chance that my approximation that a large part of this demographic would be using something like Facebook. Okay, it's a big, big, big form of social media. Now, the second thing you need to consider after you figured out where they're likely to spend their time online is how they like to absorb the content. Okay, so this same demographic spend lots of time on social media. Do they like to read blogs? Okay, think about this. Or do they prefer just to see short, sharp, snappy posts that are informative yet brief? Okay, do they like videos? Do they like single picture posts? Okay, you can do all of your independent research on specific demographics to find out what sort of content that they absorb the most. All right, so if you're looking at doing a paid advert on something like Facebook, they will be able to give you a lot of these insights as well. Okay, they will make suggestions and recommendations as to how people like to absorb content the best. But what you need to consider is also what it is that you're selling. Okay, how much content does it need? How much case study do you need to show? How many testimonials do you need to show? Okay, how much explanation do you need to provide, or how much explaining do you need to do, better yet? Okay, now if you have a fairly niche or unique service, then something like writing blogs could very much be for you, because it gives you a large area to explain your service on. Okay, but if you feel like it's already a pretty well-known service and you don't actually need that much space, then a very simple, straightforward single image ad could work for you as well. Okay, so we're nearly at the end here. Okay, and I'm going to give you a brief moment to go ahead and write down your questions. But once again, I just want to quickly run over the points that we have here today. Okay, who can afford my service? Make sure that whoever you're attempting to sell to is in an affordability range for the service that you offer, from which you have calculated on your time versus income required. Okay, next up, is there a particular niche that would benefit most? Okay, very, very important question, because you need to understand who your ideal client would be. So like I said, if you're an expert in health and fitness, then gyms might be your ideal client. Okay, which demographics fit my ideal client? Gender, age, income range, various different things like that, geographical location. Okay, where do they spend most of the time online? Are they prolific social media users? Do they prefer to use Google? Are they LinkedIn people? Are they very, very serious business people? Or are they a bit more laid back? Okay, and finally, how do they like to absorb content? Okay, so as always, I'm going to give you just a little brief moment here to go ahead and write down any questions or anything you might have to ask me before we dive on to our final question of the day, our final frequently asked question. There's a lot to manage. Should I hire someone? Okay, so we're going to cover exactly the yes or no question to this in just a moment, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, perfect. So hopefully you've had a little moment now to ask any questions, anything you need. I can see that we just had a question come in there, which is fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we are now moving on to topic number 3, which is the third and final topic of today's webinar. Okay, there is a lot to manage. Should I hire someone? These are the frequently asked questions by the digital agency startup. Okay, so my first piece of advice for you, there is a very good chance that your time management could do with some improvement. Okay, now I'm not saying that you're not busy. I'm not saying that you're not overworked, because if you are a serious startup owner, there's a very good chance that you have an awful lot on your plate right now. What I'm saying is, before you consider spending money on outsourcing and any other kind of fees, you need to be absolutely certain that you are managing your time to the absolute best capacity. Okay, so again, let's just use very, very simple logic here. Okay, the average working week is 40 hours. This is what an average adult would work in any given working week. Okay, 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. Now, you've got 40 hours to get everything that you need done in that week. Okay, so if you find yourself working 80 hours a week or 60 hours a week, there's a very good chance that you're burning yourself out, you're working too hard. Okay, now the reason I say this is there such a thing as working too hard, Ben? Yes, there absolutely is, and I'll tell you why. Because each one of us has a certain amount of mental energy, a certain amount of commitment that we can give to our work at any one time. If we're tired, if we're burnt out, we're not going to focus as well, therefore our quality in work could begin to suffer. So yes, there is such a thing as working too hard. Okay, now, when we're talking about time management specifically, are you correctly organizing any projects that you have, and are you sticking to timelines? Are you organizing your day and segmenting it effectively? So let's just say that you're a morning person. Are you putting your morning routine in with the high profile and important work that you need to get done, stuff that requires a lot of mental energy? Okay, so let's just say that each day you start work at 9 a.m. Between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., you get all of your meetings and all other high-profile, important work done before 12 p.m. 12 p.m. is then when you take your lunch. You have 30 minutes for your lunch, and you resume work from 12:30 till 5 p.m. Now, in the afternoons, you may be focusing on project-oriented work. Okay, now if this is the case, you need to make sure that you are actually committing your time to this. There's no social media distractions. There's no other influences on the outside. There's no tendencies to watch YouTube videos when you should be working. Okay. There's very, very common instances where we will find ourselves not actually realizing that a lot of what we should be doing, we're not doing because we're too busy doing something else. Okay. Now, if a task is taking considerably more time than it should be, consider why. Okay, is it because we're starting? Is it because we haven't given us enough time to actually get this task finished? Or is it because we put too much on our plate at any one time? Okay, I, at the moment, don't want to take too much up of your time. Okay, so I'm not going to run you through the ins and outs of time management because we would literally be here for hours. What I have done is summarize the absolute key points of time management for you. And this is something that you need to absolutely make sure that you are committing to. Okay, now an interesting side note here to share with you, okay, there's something that might change the way that you look at your tasks. Each time you are working on a task and you become distracted and therefore stop working on the task, it will take you roughly 15 minutes to fully refocus on that task. So let's just say that you're writing an essay or a brief of some kind. You're in the flow, you're doing really, really well, and you get a phone call, okay? That phone call then distracts you. You go back to your brief when the phone call is finished. Not only has that taken time to be on the phone, you're now using an additional 15 minutes before you actually get back up to full speed, full focus, full energy, okay? So if you imagine you're doing that 5 or 6 times a day, those 15 minutes begin to add up, okay? You're going to an hour, hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes. Now, in a 4.5-hour window that you've given yourself to do these projects, if an hour and a half is being used up just from not being able to focus properly, that's an enormous amount of time and can lead to severe procrastination. Okay, so before you look at hiring someone, all I'm asking is that you absolutely make sure that you are optimizing your own time, because that could solve a big problem for you. Okay, now, second point I have, hiring help can be unnecessary, especially in the early stages of your business. Why? Well, for the reasons that I just explained. Okay, many of us believe that we need help with admin work or various other things. Okay, now that could be the case. If you find that you have fully tapped out your time and there's absolutely nothing that you can do to improve that, then by all means, go ahead and begin to outsource. Okay, now as your startup grows, I would begin to actually suggest outsourcing. Okay, because this is when the sheer amount of work will begin to overcome our own ability, even with incredible time management. Okay, now the reason that I would begin to slowly suggest that you actually do start to spend money on outsourcing is because your time could be better spent elsewhere. However, when we're starting now as a complete and total startup, budgets are limited, finances are limited. All of the money that we have in the company or in the business is invaluable. We need to be able to use that for things like growing the business, any advertising we need, any supplies we need. We're best trying to take on as much of the workload as we can ourselves in the very, very, very early infancy of the startup. As we begin to grow, it becomes more about efficiency and spending your time and money effectively. Okay, but in this particular instance, we're talking about startups in the early stages. All right, so hiring help can be unnecessary, especially in the early stages, because your money is limited. Okay, most startups will start with a budget. If you burn through this too quickly, you will find yourself without any funds to carry yourself forward. Finally, workload is often higher in the beginning and you will see an eventual plateau. Okay, now the reason that workloads are higher in the beginning is because, let's think about this for a second. Let's just say that we're setting up the company. Okay, so what you've got to do is you've got to set up the company itself, you've got to set up the business. You need to create all your files, you need to create all your organization systems, you need to create all your management systems, you need to get your accounting set up, you need to speak to the relevant experts over there. You need to make sure that you're handling invoices, you're building templates for your invoices. I could go on and on and on about the necessary admin when you're starting up a business. Okay. The second thing that you have to consider is when a client is new, okay, if you're working hard to sign new clients, you're going to have to work pretty hard at your lead generation system, okay, because you haven't figured that out yet. You need to know how to sign clients. You haven't done that yet, okay? You might still be working on your offer. The second thing of this, when we're looking at new clients, okay, is that clients will often come in with a heavy workload and you will often be setting things up for them. So you've just finished setting up your own business. Now you're going and setting up pieces of other people's businesses, okay? But just like you, when you have finished setting up their businesses, there's going to be a lot less work required. So let's say that you have to set up a landing page. It's going to take you 10 hours to build that landing page. But once it's built, it might only require an hour of maintenance a month. The same goes for your business. Once you spend considerable amounts of time setting up correctly, it shouldn't actually require that much time going forward. Okay, so understand that workload is often higher in the beginning because you will be working overtime to get everything set up. Once you set everything up efficiently and correctly, you will see yourself using less time on stuff like that, more time that you can give to your clients. All right, so what I'm saying here, the overarching message Make sure that your time management is spot on. Hiring can be unnecessary if you don't need it, and workload is often higher. So give it time and wait until you see that plateau. Okay, now summarize today's presentation. Begin with your skill set. Okay, understand the skill set that you have and how it can be valuable to prospective clients. Number two, assess your ideal client and go from there. If you're asking me, Ben, who can I sell my services to? Go and do the work. Have the questions written down, ask yourself these questions and assess that. Once you know who it is that you need to sell to and you know where to find them and what you're going to offer them, you will inevitably see more success if you stick with it. Okay, and finally, manage your time and truly assess whether you need help. We can absolutely cripple ourselves in the beginning by not allowing ourselves time to actually figure out how much we need help with, if anything at all. Okay, so you don't want to cripple the business in the early stages by doing this. Okay, make sure that you're standing strong with your business, that you're managing your time management effectively. Okay, and that you're making sure that if you do take on help, it's absolutely 100% necessary. Okay, so a big thank you as always for attending. If you would like to go and check us out, you can head over to iob-business.com and you can go and look into us over there. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pick up the questions. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a moment before we get onto the Q&A to go ahead and ask any more questions that you have for me today. Okay, so whilst you're doing that, I'm going to go and get the questions that I have currently. Okay, perfect. So the first question that I have for today, thank you very much indeed for that other question. I just saw it come in and I will get to that in a second. So the first question that I have at the moment, all right, question, if I shouldn't hire or outsource right at the start, when should I? Okay, so this is essentially a question asking, well, okay, if you're telling me not to hire at the start of my business, then when would be the right time? Okay, so there's not a yes or no answer to this question, but what I am going to share with you is that if your earnings begin to exceed your necessary personal income, okay, this could be a decent time for you to begin outsourcing. If your business is earning too much money, quote unquote, this is really a sign that actually, okay, I can begin to afford some additional help for the business. Equally, if you're hiring help for extra clients you brought in, if you've got a particularly huge project, you think I'm never going to get this done myself, I need expert help in expert areas. Okay, so something that you should always have as a business is accounting and professional finance help. Okay, now the second thing could be if we're looking at other niches. Okay, like you have a client that needs a big project and there's certain areas of that project that you're actually not that familiar with. Okay, and you need expert help to get it done. As long as you're confident in their ability, there's no problem with this. Okay, so the most common answer to this question really is when your earnings exceed your necessary personal income. Okay, now, if this is not the case, then it's most likely a time management or a fee pricing issue. Okay, if you decide that you need to hire someone because your workload is so overwhelming, but you actually realize that you can't because you haven't got the income, okay, it could be that you're spending too much time on these clients or the fact that you're not being paid accordingly for the work that you're putting in. Okay, so always make sure, this is why your fee structure is so important, because if you're working 20 hours a week on one client that's paying you £200 a month, there's something wrong there. Okay, you're working too much for not enough money. Therefore, you can't actually hire the help that you need. So there's a lot of different ways to answer this question, but the most common one, the best answer that I can give you, if you're asking me when you should hire, it's when you need expert help or when you feel like the work is overcoming you, or you feel like you're going to lose money if you don't hire help to take on more clients. Okay. Fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking. Okay. All right. Another question. I don't feel I have any valuable skills to offer, question mark. Okay. All right. So I have two things for you here. Okay. The first one is if you feel like right now you don't have any valuable skills to offer. Okay. I would politely disagree with you because I believe that everybody has a form of skill. Okay. But first things first, number one, you can always educate yourself with a valuable skill set. Okay, the education is always out there should you need it. Okay, this is important to remember. There are many different places where you can get education. Example number one, you are on this webinar today getting education from myself. Okay, so just like you're getting this from me, you can go and get it on many different forms and many different niches and skills. Okay, and number two, don't underestimate yourself. Okay, be creative with how you package your offer and you will have something valuable to give someone. You just need to know how to frame it properly. Okay, so let's go back to my analytics example. A business analyst might not feel like they have a place in the marketing world. I would disagree. If you're used to looking at numbers and you have a unique skill set in the terms of that you have a very, very keen eye for spotting mistakes or things that could be optimized and improved, that is invaluable in marketing. People spend lots and lots and lots of money on paid advertising campaigns and the like. Okay, so you have companies spending millions of pounds a month on paid advertising. If you're going to tell me that they don't want to know how to spend that money effectively, then I would have to disagree with you. Okay, so consider what your skill set is. Number one, remember that you can always educate yourself. You can always learn more. Number two, remember that the skills that you do have right now, the very, very, very good chance that they are valuable. Okay, if you have a strong background in almost any niche. All right, fantastic. Great question again. Thank you so much for allowing me to provide that extra content on today's webinar. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to do one final check, but I do believe that that is the questions that we have for today. All done. Excellent. Okay, so on that note, I will then bring this webinar to an end. It's been a real pleasure having everyone on here. We'll be back here, same time, same place, 2 weeks from now. Okay, all the best. I wish you very, very well. I look forward to speaking to you again in the near future. Take care and bye for now.